Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment. We're in Committee Room 1 today. It's my favorite room. A little bit larger and spread out. So before we get started, we apologize for just being a few minutes late today. Just to remind you, please turn off your cell phones or use the etiquette feature. And please be advised that we usually are. I don't see it. We are being streamed live on YouTube. So welcome to our viewers on YouTube. This meeting is held in accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act as amended, and I'll now call this meeting to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for minor variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to create new lots. To ensure a fair and timely hearing, I will vet the agenda to determine which applications can be dealt with immediately and which applications require a more in-depth review. So I'll start off by calling each item in the order listed on the agenda, both by its municipal address and number on the agenda, and ask for the agent or applicant to put up your hand, let me know that you're here. And then I'll ask if there's anyone here with concerns or opposition to the application. You'll put up your hand and let me know if you're here. If there are people in interest on a particular application with questions, concerns, or opposition, that matter will be held to the end of the applicable time slot, which in this case is the 9:30. The morning slot is all lumped together. And it'll be held until all other non-contested applications have been cleared from the agenda. If your matter is held, we strongly recommend that you meet outside with the concerned neighbors and with an attempt to either understand the application, narrow the issues, have some kind of discussion. Sometimes we find that works. It's just a matter of misunderstanding. Certainly, if you don't resolve the concerns outside of the room, you'll certainly be given a chance to present your opinions when the matter is called. So if no person is present, we just call the item, the applicant or agent comes to the podium, proceeds with their presentation if required. If it's a very simple application, we may suggest that we don't need a presentation and just go directly take the matter into committee for a vote. When you make your submissions, each speaker, including the applicant agent, comes up to the podium, is given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee and start off by stating your name and address. Also, when you come in, please hand in your white decision request card. They're over at the end of the tables, and hand it into staff. And then if you have written submissions that you're reading for, please hand in a copy to staff when you're done. And then after the applicant presents the application, the neighbors, either in support or opposition to the application, will be allowed to express their views, also maximum 5 minutes. If there are a number of speakers sharing the same view on a particular application, please select a spokesperson to present the group's opinion. We want to hear your views, however, covering the same points over and over will not advance your cause. Certainly, though, if you have other issues and concerns that haven't been raised by a previous speaker, you'll certainly be able to address the committee and be given 5 minutes. But we just ask that when some applications there's 15 people present, that they all don't speak. When all speakers are finished, the applicant is given an opportunity to come back up to the podium and rebut and respond to those issues that have been raised by the neighbors, not to re-present their application. The matter is then taken into committee for a decision, and that will mark the end of all discussion unless you're asked a question. Committee members may ask questions of speakers at the end of their submissions. And please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. We deal with planning matters. We don't deal with disputes between neighbors, personal issues of that nature. And we don't deal with building related issues. If you don't, then break in the matter into committee for a decision. If you don't agree with the decision that is rendered here today, you may file an appeal. Appeals are dealt with a new tribunal called TEY, Toronto Local Appeal Body, and for more information on TEY, please visit their website or the Committee of Adjustment website. And appeal instructions will be included at the bottom of every decision. And in order to receive a copy of the committee's decision, please fill out one of those decision request cards, and please include your email address, because in the event of an appeal, TEY uses email addresses for notification and appeal updates. Okay, and decisions are mailed out within 3 business days. So now we just have some preliminary business, confirmation of last minute meetings minutes. I believe that was May the 1st. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Moved, seconded, all in favor. Okay, the minutes are approved. Are there anywhere Any files to be closed? I believe we have one item, 311 Jarvis.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Application A037119 TEY for 311 Jarvis Street. The application was scheduled for June 12th. The notice of public hearing was issued for that hearing, and the applicant now no longer needs their variances, so they're withdrawing their application. Under our refund rules, they would not be entitled to a refund.
Okay. Have a motion?
I move that the file be closed. Second.
Okay, file is closed, but no refund. Okay. Okay, does anyone here wish to withdraw their application? Any deferral requests we'll deal with, okay, we might as well deal with a deferral request. Yes, sir? Okay, in the case there's someone here. So, okay, so let's vet the agenda, and then we'll deal with you. Yeah, you were dealing on a deferral issue? Okay, so we'll get to it when we call your application. Okay, item number 1, 12 Ossington is the applicant here. Agent, thank you. Any people here in concerns and opposition in interest to that application? Nope, the application will not be held. Item number 2, 22 Grange Avenue, the applicant here? Oh, okay. Is anyone else here on item number 2, 22 Grange? No, but nobody else here. I just want to see if there's any. There are people here? Sorry, you're opposed to the application? Can we deal with the deferral at the end? Okay, well, when we finish vetting, we'll come back and deal with that item first, okay? Item number 3, 132 Pickering Street. Applicant agent here? Okay. Any neighbors present or parties in interest on number 3, 132 Pickering? No, that won't be held. Item 4, 132 Willow Avenue. Applicant agent. Any neighbors on 134 Willow?
Sure.
Yes? Okay, that matter will be held perhaps if you'd like to use your time to go out and have a discussion. Item number 5, 66 Adair Road. Agent here, thank you. Any neighbors present on Adair Road, 66? Over here. Okay, that matter will be held. Mr. Master Andrea, if you see the people, I don't know if you want to have a discussion with. You want to put your hands up again? Okay, so perhaps you want to have a discussion with the agent outside. Okay. Okay, so that matter will be held. Okay. Item number 6, 106 Knox Avenue. Thank you. Anyone here on 106 Knox with in interest? Nope. It will not be held. Item 7, 69 Leslie Street. Applicant agent, any neighbors present on Leslie Street? It won't be held. Item 8, 66 Saulter Street. Any neighbors present on 66 Saulter?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, that matter will be held. Now we have numbers 9, 10, 11, and 12, which are 45, 47, 49, and 51. Saulter, we're going to hear those together because they're very similar. Is the agent here on that? Okay, any neighbors present on 45 through 51 Saulter? Okay, it won't be held. Item 13, 385 to 389 Church. Applicant agent, any neighbors present on Church Street? Okay, it won't be held. Item 14, 210 Floyd Avenue. Thank you. Any neighbors present on 210 Floyd? Won't be held. Item 15, 265 Glebemount Avenue. 265 Glebemount. Held up in traffic? Okay, small h. Item number 16, 174. Oh, sorry. So 265 Glebemount, you're a neighbor? Okay, so it'll be held, but the applicant isn't here yet. Do you know who the applicant is or agent or no? So I'll have to call it again. Okay, so we'll keep track of that one. 16, 174 Roads. Okay, and any neighbors present on 174 Roads with concerns? Nope, it won't be held. Item 17, 703 Mortimer Avenue. Okay, thank you. Any neighbors present on 703 Mortimer with concerns? Nope. 18, 741 Craven Road. Thank you. Any neighbors present on Craven Road? Nope. 19, 45 Strachan Avenue. Applicant agent, thank you. Neighbors on Strachan? Nope. Number 20, 52 Kerr Road. Thank you. Any neighbors on 52 Kerr Road? And last item on the morning agenda, 21, 107 Wineva Avenue. Thank you. Any neighbors here on 107 Wineva? No? Okay. So just to recap, the items that we're holding are items 4, 134 Willow, number 5, 66 Adair, number 8, 66 Saulter, and number 4515, 265 Glebemount. And so we're going to start off at the top and go through the applications, but let's deal with firstly the item number 2, 22 Grange. Would the applicant come up to the podium and the neighbors come sit on the table to my left? You're right. The neighbor on 22 Grange, you want to come just sit at the table there? Yeah.
Hi there.
Morning.
I'm Andrew Dales, 147 Liberty Street in Toronto. I'm the planning consultant for Mr. Charles Pachter, the owner of 22 Grange.
Okay.
Although the city planning is now satisfied with the plans and we have 18 letters of support from neighbors, we recently learned that the next door neighbor has concerns with the proposal. We're asking for a deferral to give us time to meet with the neighbor and hopefully come up with a plan to address their concerns. We have some ideas how the plans might be modified to in a meaningful way to address the concerns.
Okay. And what's the neighbor? I take it is in close proximity. We'll hear from him on the issue of the deferral, but it looks like the applicant, the neighbor, is the one that's asking for the immediate neighbor. Late in the process, to ensure a positive communal process, the councillor has written in a letter that he is in support of the deferral request as well.
Great.
So are you. So let's just quickly hear.
I have a question. You indicated it's time to consult with the neighbor. Have you not consulted with the neighbor previously?
My understanding is that my client has reached out a couple of times, but was unable to reach the neighbor. That's my understanding.
Can you please come up to the podium, sir? Maybe just step up to the podium, give us your name for the record.
My client canvassed the community. We have 18 letters from them.
Right, I'm sorry, but most directly, affected neighbor would be next door. This is I guess, a complete second story and partial third story addition to the rear portion. So, sir, can we get your name and address, please?
My name is Wilson Young, and I represent the Pony Society, which is the neighbor on the 24 Grange Avenue.
Okay.
And our opposition is because
I don't want to hear your opposition, I just want to hear you on the issue of the deferral.
deferral. Yes, well, this is the first time I'm hearing that the applicant would like a deferral, and we're open to meeting with the applicant to discuss that.
Yeah, I think the applicant doesn't want the deferral, he's agreeing to a deferral that your
He's agreed.
client requested.
Yes.
The counselor is supporting. So he's not asking for the deferral, I'm sure he'd love to proceed today.
Okay,
The
so-
deferral is to accommodate your client.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to get your position on the deferral for the record and your name. If you can fill out one of those white decision request cards.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Yeah, is there some do you think it could possibly be resolved? I don't know if you have instructions from your client to try to resolve this issue with the applicant here today. We're going to be here till all morning.
Yeah.
If you wanted to go ahead and try to have some discussion or do that at a later date and proceed with the deferral. See, we don't like having deferrals unless absolutely necessary because it clogs up the system. We do 46 applications here today, and it means, we don't clear those from the agenda and it has to go on to another hearing.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, the Secretary Treasurer mentioned whether this is something that could perhaps be resolved over the next hour. You could perhaps have a discussion. I don't know what your client is looking for or whether you're here with the ability to do so or can reach your client over the phone. So do you think that's a
Okay,
possibility?
I have a question. What is the purpose of the deferral? Is it an opportunity for the applicant to speak to the neighbors and present their case or
No, the
just get
reason-
their
The
opinion?
reason for they got 18 letters of support,
Okay.
but somehow your client, who's the most directly affected next door,
Correct.
was not one of them, and I believe it's your client who has asked for the deferral, not
We've asked for the deferral.
in order because of the issue raised by the neighbor.
And what the applicant,
We want to meet with them, have the time to meet with them. We We have
Right.
some ideas how we
Sure.
might be
Okay, so I'm just, Mr. Dale, is that possible that you can do that over the next hour, or some means more fulsome?
We're going to need to revise the plans and
I see.
submit and have the zoning notice revised as well.
Yeah, this matter was filed a year ago, I'm told.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So-
And taking the time to work with staff to come up with a plan
Right.
we're satisfied with.
Yeah, but you got 18 letters, but, you know, the most directly affected neighbor is probably, so.
Well,
Correct.
certainly we would have.
Okay,
Yeah.
we figured you might as well ask if it could be resolved. So on the issue of deferral to the next available date, maximum of 3 months, when you're ready, you'll call staff and you'll be put on the next available agenda, but we are, as you know, backed up on our list.
Okay.
That's right, and this may be, you may be appearing before a new panel because there's new, the nomination process is upon us, and by July, there'll be a new panel in place. Okay, okay, as a matter of deferral, can I have a motion?
Yeah, I move that the matter be deferred for the usual term.
Okay, and the standard recirculation fee.
And the purpose of the deferral is to allow the applicant to meet with the adjacent neighbor and to propose alternatives to meet the neighbor's concerns.
Precisely. We have some ideas how we might be able to do that.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dale. Okay, you have your deferral, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's start hearing the uncontested matters. The first application is logically number 1, 12 Ossington. Would the applicant please come to the podium? This is an application, just bear with me for a second. I need my list. This is an application to permit the construction of a new 4-story semi-detached commercial building, retail and office uses, and this is in conjunction with the site plan application in 2018. And we have before us covering letter from the agent, correspondence from city planning, development engineering, letters of support, no opposition from area residents, as well as some letters of opposition. And that's what we have on this. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Robert Howe. I'm the solicitor for the applicant. I assume that you have reviewed the materials this morning, and you probably don't need a lengthy presentation from me in terms of the details of what's
correct, yeah.
proposed. We did receive, as you indicated, we do have support from planning staff. This is a revised version of an application that was originally filed in 2018 that was substantially revised by our client to address concerns raised by planning staff and urban design staff. We've also worked with heritage staff. We have support from heritage staff, we have support from planning staff, we have support from development engineering, and we also have support from the Ossington Community Association, who we've also worked very closely
You've
with.
seen the heritage conditions, you're prepared to comply
We're
with them?
prepared to adhere to the heritage conditions. We're also okay with the development engineering condition as well. There was one letter, one email from a resident that came in yesterday, and I can address that if you would like me to.
That's the one from
Mr. Correa?
Rhea. Does he give his address? I was just,
Yes, sir. So his...
It's 22
He actually lives on Brookfield
Field,
Avenue,
yes.
Brookfield Street, sir, so...
yeah.
22 and 27, so he and his parents are right here, that's right here, and right here. So some distance away from the site.
Correct.
The main issues that they're raising are loading and parking. In terms of the loading variance, actually a loading space is no longer required under Bylaw 569, 2013, so it's a very technical variance in nature. The loading condition is as it exists today. There's loading that occurs in the rear lane to service the commercial space. We are widening that lane, and vehicles that would be parked in the lane to load would be parked in that additional widening that's being conveyed by my client to the city.
What about, sir, the issue about the parking, you're deficient?
In terms of parking, sir, the issue with parking is that the site is not large enough to accommodate parking without substantially reducing the footprint of the building. This is not a circumstance where we are taking away parking. We're expanding the footprint of the building to accommodate increased development and losing parking spaces. It's effectively the existing condition. Development engineering commented on the parking issue and recommended that my client be required to provide either 4 off-site parking spaces or pay cash in lieu, and we're certainly prepared to abide by that condition.
Okay, so cash in lieu is a process, is a council process, as you know.
Our client actually has another development in the vicinity that can provide parking, and so that is probably the option that they're going to pursue, but that will be secured through a site plan approval process.
Okay, so if we impose a condition of 4 off-site parking spots,
Or cash in lieu.
cash in lieu, and then you can go through the process and figure out
That's right.
what's best for you.
That's right.
Okay, committee members, you have any questions for Mr. Howe? No. Okay, are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the application, subject to the heritage conditions that have been mentioned. As we noted, planning has support, and in terms of parking, I'd like to recommend that the condition be that off-site parking be provided to the satisfaction of the Transportation Department, which gives flexibility as to which of the options one might go, and we need someone to sign off on it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
4.
Second the motion.
okay, you have your approval.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, item 2 has been deferred, so we'll move on to item number 3, which is 132 Pickering Street. The applicant, please come to the podium. This is an application to alter the existing 2-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear deck and a rear yard shed to be used as a studio. And we have 5 variances under the new bylaw, nothing under the old bylaw. And we have on this application, we have correspondence from the agent, or applicant, and also together with previous decisions of the committee, and 2 letters of support, including the adjacent neighbor at 130. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you? Like you said, there's 2 letters of support.
Get your name.
Oh, sorry. Apologies. New to this. Tyler Keys. I'm the owner of the property at 132 Pickering.
Right.
I built a back deck, and I'm trying to build a studio for a workshop painting. And
Okay, so the rear deck's already been built, so it's still, is that, or?
yeah, so it's mostly built. It's I still have to.
Okay, let's see if committee members require a presentation from you, or if they just have some questions, or if we're ready for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. It's for the Deputy Secretary Treasurer, however. The one letter of support has a concern. It's from Maria Mina and her husband, and it says, "My only concern is the potential for noise from an air conditioner or other appliance, and would request that the approval stipulate in this regard." I'm not aware of any jurisdiction or approach that we could take to deal with that request. Are you? So there's nothing we could do in yeah, but we can't do it here. It's a condition. Okay.
Yeah, I've
That
also.
was my only question.
Okay. I've told them as well that I won't have any AC units in there anyways, so that's fine. But yeah.
Okay. Mr. Grandstein, you second that motion?
Yes.
Okay, you have your approval, thank you.
Thank you.
Unanimously. So items number 4 and 5 are being held. Oh, the neighbors left, okay. Okay, so this is an application, 134 Willow, to alter the existing 2.5-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a 3rd-story dormer addition on the north side, a rear 1-story addition, and a rear yard deck, patio, pergola, and carport. And we have before us in this application, community planning requesting a condition of approval, and 2 letters of support from both adjacent, 132 and 138. I don't know if there's a 136 or not, but 132 and 138. And that's all we have. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Brennan Charters from Eurodale Design and Build, and I am agent on behalf of the owner.
Okay. Committee members, do you want a presentation, or do you have some questions? I see the ancillary buildings, it's maximum 40 or 52.4 meters. That includes the pergola. That's all that include. Does that include the deck as well, or no?
It does not. It includes the pergola and the carport.
Okay.
And neither of them are moved?
I moved,
Filled-in roof on the pergola.
no, that's not a filled-in, it's a slatted pergola-style roof. But the carport, yes, has a full cover.
But it's not closed on all three sides?
Correct.
The carport.
It's open air.
Are you aware of the planning requested condition of approval? Have you seen it?
Correct, yes, I'm familiar with the report that was submitted from planning, yes.
So you don't have trouble with that condition?
I have no issue with that, yeah, it's related to the wall height, the
That's
main
right.
wall height and the dormer, yeah, we're fine with that.
Okay, any further questions, Mr. Charters, or are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the application. I think it clearly meets the 4 tests. My approval is conditional upon the condition laid out by the planning department in their report to us.
Okay, you have your approval, thank you.
Thank you kindly, have a good day.
Okay, item number 5 is held, so we'll move to item number 6, 106 Knox Avenue. This is an application to alter the existing 2-story detached dwelling by constructing a 3rd-story addition. And we have 4 variances. Sorry, 1 variance under the new bylaw as to floor space index, and then 3 under the old bylaw. And we have before us in this application nothing whatsoever, no communication from city staff, departments, or area residents. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Rudy Wallman. I'm the agent for the owner. Would you like a presentation?
Committee members? Okay, Mr. Wallman, let's see if they have any questions for you, or if we're ready for a motion. Do you know what the current floor space index is? You're looking to go from 1 times coverage to 1.26?
The current size of the building is about 1,800 square feet. We're proposing 2,700 square feet.
Okay.
So it's currently about 0.8 times, and we're proposing
Full
1.26.
3rd story.
Correct.
Great. Any questions? No. Motion?
I move that the application be approved.
Okay, you have your approval, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is item number 7, 69 Leslie Street. This is an application to construct a detached garage at the rear of an existing 2-story semi-detached dwelling, and we have standard conditions from TRCA, and that's all we have before us on this application. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Shane Gregory, agent for the owners at 69 Leslie.
Okay, looks very straightforward, so we'll see if committee members want a presentation or if they have any questions or are ready for a motion.
You're aware of the conditions proposed by Conservation Authority? You're okay with those?
Absolutely, yes.
Those circumstances, I move that the application be approved subject to the Conservation Authority condition.
Thank you, Mr. Grandenstein.
Second the motion.
Okay, you have your approval. Thank you. Okay, item number 8 is held, so we'll move over to do 9, 10, 11, and 12 altogether. These are applications to alter 2-story townhouses, in each case by constructing a 3-story rear addition with a basement and basement walkouts and a rear deck. We have on these applications communication from TRCA and letters of support. I believe the variances are more or less identical except for one of the applications, which is the end unit. So obviously, though, that one has a different thing. By the way, this is wonderful when everyone comes in together, and first of all, it saves us time. We're doing 4 applications in one, but as well, it provides economies of scale, and obviously, the neighbors are not objecting if they're doing the same thing. So it's I think, a wonderful thing when townhouse neighbors get together to do everything all together, rather than come and fight with their neighbor and then do the same thing 2 years later. So, kudos.
And just before you begin, if I could just show you something, just to give you some very
Sure.
brief context here. And what we have here.
He needs to introduce himself.
Yeah, can you put it on maybe it's easier to put on the overhead?
Okay.
He needs to introduce himself.
Yeah. And sir, can you also give us your name and address?
So it's Brian Parker, a registered planner here on behalf of the owner.
Okay, so you're not Mr. Hudson listed as the, oh, right. I didn't flip my page here,
So,
sorry.
so
We have you listed at Mr. Steiner.
Yes, so this is a existing row house of 4 dwelling units. And that's why there are 4 specific variance applications.
Right.
And this really should be treated as a conservation plan. The intent here is to save the existing dwellings at 45-51 and then to inject a rear addition, a three-story rear addition that has a roof line that's consistent with what exists to both the north and south. And this was agreed to in detailed discussions with the city's Heritage Division and city planning staff. And so this is all towards maintaining and improving what is existing.
Yeah, and TRC has written letters that they have no objections to these applicants.
That's right. And both the neighbors at number 43 on the south and 53 on the north were consulted extensively, and there were letters of,
Yep.
From each of those.
Okay, did your homework. Let's see if committee members have any questions for you, Mr. Steiner, or if we're ready for a motion. Isn't it, you're Mr. Steiner?
It's Brian Parker.
Brian Parker,
Yeah,
okay.
not a problem. Thank you.
My apologies.
None.
No questions. I'm ready to move approval of these applications.
Okay. No condition, no conditions, right?
No conditions.
Okay, so that's the same for items, so we're dealing with 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Yes, each of the items.
Okay. Mr. Nutfeld?
I would second the motion.
Okay,
I think this is a really good opportunity to save some heritage buildings, and it's been done very tastefully.
Okay. You have your approvals, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, item number 13, 385 to 3989 Church Street. This is an application to alter the 12-story mixed-use building containing 120 affordable rental dwelling units by constructing an elevator vestibule at the penthouse level. And we have on this application a covering letter from Carolyn Howe's agent, correspondence and Director of Capital Planning, Design and Engineering, and 4 renderings and 2 photographs of the existing building and proposed vestibule elevator. Good morning.
Hi there. I am Carolyn House, the owner's representative from Hilditch Architect.
Okay.
As you noted, we submitted some documentation for the file. I was planning to go through the sort of written summary, but I'm not sure if
I don't know if I don't believe we need, there's only 2 variances, the height of the elevator vestibule and the amenity space. And you're slightly below it from 480 square meters to 450. Committee members, you have any questions for Ms. Howes, or are we ready for motion?
I just have one question. Was there an elevator there, or is this a new addition?
so. There are 2 existing elevators, but this is a new elevator, a 3rd elevator that is barrier-free. So it's larger than the existing elevator. It provides space for mobility devices and a stretcher, which the existing elevators can't accommodate.
So it covers the whole building?
It does, yeah.
Because it talked about something at the penthouse level, I thought it was just a one story, only
So
went
it
up
goes
one
from
story.
the ground floor up to the penthouse.
Okay, thank you. I'm prepared to move for approval of this application.
Thank you, Mr. Bernstein.
I'd second the motion. I'd also like to compliment the applicant for the axonometric drawings, which it's a very simple application, but it could be easily misunderstood. These drawings make it very clear.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks very much.
Okay, you have your approval, thank you. Oh, that was
Agent for
right,
item 15,
365 Glebemount, item number 15, we called this, and the agent wasn't here. Is the agent here now for 265 Glebemount, item number 15?
You are, okay. This
You are?
time,
Okay, so the matter is being, there's a neighbor here on 265 Glebemount, right?
Yes.
There's a neighbor, you're the applicant?
Over behind you, behind you.
Okay, but you're the applicant? Sir, you're the applicant? Okay, because you were late when we first called the item. This gentleman at the back, you're in opposition to that, right?
Yes.
Several of you. Okay, so can I see the hands of the people who are here in opposition to that application? Okay, so sir, we're holding, you weren't here, we hold the contested applications to the end of the time slot. So while the matter is being held, perhaps you can go and have a discussion with the neighbors, see what their concerns are, see if there's any possibility of resolving, maybe it's a misunderstanding. So usually when we're hearing applications, we ask if held items, you can have the opportunity to meet outside the room and have a discussion. It's not mandatory, and we'll hear your application at the end of the non-contested matters. Thank you. Okay, so we're here now back to number 14. 210 Floyd. This is an application to legalize and maintain the height of the new two-story detached dwelling that was constructed beyond approved building permit. I almost said inadvertent, I assume it was. So basically, you were allowed 8.5, you were at 8.79.
Correct.
So, good morning, Mr. Binkowski. Can you tell us how this occurred?
The contractor did not like the slope of the roof and didn't think it was safe for snow load, so he took it upon himself to change the pitch of the roof so it could have a greater pitch, because he believed the snow would be a problem. So the house was originally constructed with no building permit as of right, and the contractor went to the truss manufacturer and said, no, don't go with those plans.
Okay, so this is his only, it's not like he had a whack of 20 variants.
He didn't. This was a house, correct.
Okay, so it sounds to me like it was,
And there are some support letters from the neighbors on file as well.
That's correct, from 212 and 214, both adjacent. So.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the application. It's extremely minor, and it appears that the variance allows an improvement to the site.
Okay, thank you.
I agree. I second the motion.
Okay, you have your approval. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, next application is item number 16, 174 Roads. This is an application to alter the one-story detached dwelling by constructing a second-floor addition, a two-story rear addition with basement walkout, and a rear ground-floor deck. And there are 5 variances under the bylaw. We have memo from Community Planning requesting a conditional of approval, and we have Urban Forestry requesting their standard conditions 2 and 3. And Planning is asking that the be built substantially in accordance with the site plan. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Committee of Adjustment. My name is Colin Lightbourne. I'm the designer and the applicant. We're proposing to, as you stated, construct a 2-story rear addition and a second-story addition over the existing structure. You should have a copy of the staff report.
Yes, you've seen that with the
Yes, I
recommended
was in
conditions of approval?
discussions with her, and I suggested that we do lower the soffits and down to 7.95 as opposed to 8.47, which is reasonable.
Right. And then Mr. Lightbourne, note the front yard setback be limited to the front second-story bay window.
Yes, that's
The railer of
correct.
the front wall will be set back 4.36.
Exactly. That is the existing front wall,
Okay.
which is 4.36 meters, and I just bumped out a bay window on the second floor over the garage.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Lightbourne, let's see if committee members have any questions for you or if we're ready for a motion.
Ready for a motion. I move to approve the application subject to the 2 conditions proposed by planning and forestry conditions number 2 and 3.
Second the motion.
Okay, you have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item number 17 is 703 Mortimer. This is an application to alter the existing 2-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear second-story addition on top of the existing rear ground floor addition. There's 1 variance under the new bylaw floor space index and 2 variances under the old bylaw as well. And we have before us, someone did their homework. We have a 19-signature petition in support, no opposition, signed by area residents, and including, it looks like, both adjacent, and correspondence in opposition. Oh, no. Sorry. It's not both adjacent. We have correspondence and opposition from 701 right next door. The neighbor on the other side is one of the parties that have signed the petition. And we have a, we have a lengthy three-page letter from the adjacent neighbor. You've seen the letter, sir?
Yes, hi. Hi, my name is Roy Chan. I'm the agent representative for the owner.
Okay.
Yes, we've read the story. It's an interesting story the neighbor had came up with. I went through it with the owner, and he does not recall any of the agreements that the neighbor was saying regarding the previous applications that was approved. Now, he had tried to approach the owner since January with regards to this application prior to us even applying for the application. And it was all, he showed me all the conversation. It was kind of pleasant, but the owner had never raised any issues or concerns with regards to the application. And we see this story that he submitted as an opposition letter. So.
I have a 4-page. Is there another page missing? This letter? Because I don't see the end of the letter.
Oh, yeah, there is another page.
Yeah, okay. And that's
I have a copy of the letter if you need it.
The drawings are incorrect.
Right. Okay, so I missed I didn't have the last page. It's okay, I can share with, yeah, that's fine.
We've also submitted a brand-new survey from the surveyor, so that's why with what the owner was, the next-door neighbor was complaining about our site plan because we never had a survey. It was submitted to the Committee of Adjustment to replace the site plan. So the survey tells the whole story of where everybody is, and our application is to propose a second story over the rear one story of the existing house. It's basically 2 bedrooms at the back on the second floor for the kids. So that's pretty much what the client is asking for.
Okay. So he's saying that the drawing is
We've submitted, can I put this up here?
yeah, put in the overhead.
That's the survey we added to the application later on because we were trying to get a brand-new legal survey, and this is what it is.
That doesn't seem to agree with the site plan you submitted.
The site plan will be revised according to this because we're not adding any length or width. So basically, this is what it is. This is.
Yeah, there's no height variance here.
No,
correct?
we're not asking
or
for.
Depth variance, or there's no.
We're asking for second story to follow the previous side yard, to go up along the wall from the ground floor, and we're asking for the floors, the floor space index.
The concern that
density,
I have,
sorry.
concern that I have is on the site plan, it indicates that you're extending back no further than the property at 701, and the property to the other side is a little further. The property to the west is a little further longer than you would be as if the addition was approved. But then this drawing indicates that your proposal
Yes.
actually takes your building back well beyond both adjacent properties.
Yeah, that's why we submitted this one to basically override the site plan, because we don't have a survey or anything. The drawing was based on the previous permit application. So that's why we had the brand-new survey done to show the current condition. So the site plan will not.
The concern that's been raised by the adjacent neighbor, then I would argue, has some validity because your extension is in fact well beyond the limit of the back of his property, the back of his house.
Yes, that's existing.
But his argument is you're going to make it worse by adding yet another floor.
Yes, I guess you can say that, but
Was there a zoning review on this application? So I'm just surprised there's no height variance, there's no length or depth variance. Okay, so it's correct, it does go well beyond, and it already does, you're saying it's just that you're adding the second floor. But that's not a variance.
The second floor is not a variance.
No, I'm saying, but, and there is no length, pre-existing or new depth or length variance either.
No, not currently.
You're within your rights to go back as far as you're going.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's impacts on the neighbors, though. But that is not the nature. Oh, yeah, so you're looking to go from floor space index of permitted 0.75 to 0.84.
Yes.
You're basically only going about another 16 meters more than you're permitted on 2 floors. Do you know what the current floor space index is before this construction?
Current floor space index, I can do a quick calculation. Oh, here. It's easy. Current floor space index is 0.657.
Okay.
Yeah, we added 24 feet by 14 feet 7 inches on the second floor, basically.
I'm surprised there aren't more variances as well.
Yeah. So I guess it's permitted to go that far back, and there's no height variance either. It's a rather modest, the variance for floor space index is 16 meters over what's permitted as well, so.
So you are, your client, sir, your client is permitted by law, by the existing bylaws to erect a house that deep and that high?
Currently, yes.
Yeah, and it's just a little over on the 16 square meters over on the floor space index.
Yes. It's 15.87 square meters.
It's unfortunate that there's this effect on the neighbor, but but most of what the applicant is doing is by right. And the 16 square or 15 square meter floor space index increase is not significant. And in that case, I am moving to approve the application.
Thank you, Mr. Gravenstein.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Mr. Grandstein. I think the 2 variances that are being requested are relatively minor. I think the ultimate solution is unfortunate relative to the neighbor, and I feel that he's raised some valid concerns. But given that all we're being asked for are some relatively minor changes to floor space index, I'm prepared to second the motion. However, if it turns out that you've missed variances and you also need variances to height and length and you're back before this committee, I will not support those.
Understand.
But there was a staff review, it wasn't he didn't self-identify as variances, so. Okay, so you have your approval, thank you.
Thank
you. Okay. Our next application is item number 18, 741 Craven Road. This is an application to alter the 2-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear 2-story addition with a rear yard deck. And we have 2 variances, floor space index and the distance to the setback to the south side lot line, which I assume already is a pre-existing condition. And before us in this application, all we have is one letter of support from 727 Craven Road.
We have 7 more now.
Okay, you can bring those up and I'll read them into the record. And can you give us your name as well, sir?
My name's Andrew Stratus. I'm an agent for the homeowner.
Okay, so we have a petition here signed by 5 area residents, no formal objection.
Including the attached neighbor.
Right, that's 743?
Yes.
Okay, so we have, 743 of 2 signatures from 743, 2 from 711, and 1 from 699. So we actually have, I call it 3 letter.
I believe they're rentals, I think. So there's a basement and an upstairs. So that's why they're doubles.
So these are from tenants or from neighbor, are these from tenants or they're from the
I think
landlord?
both. I think the homeowner and then the tenant signing off on it. So
the homeowner may be more concerned than the tenant. Having said that, there's only 2 variants. Do you know what your current floor space index is? Because you're allowed.
0.69 is what's allowable, and then as drawn is 0.86.
Right, but what is there now?
Oh, it's virtually the same because it's pulling down an old rotten addition, so it's a little bit lower, probably mid-7, like probably 0.75.
You're already over, right?
But yeah, it's already over for sure. You see the addition there to be pulled off is almost.
Okay, seems straightforward. Let's see if Committee of Adjustment members have any questions for you.
Do you have support from 739?
No, they were able to be reached.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you tried.
Sorry?
But you tried to contact.
The homeowners have tried. They're not around much, but as far as I know, they have not been reached.
Fair enough.
Okay. We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the application. I think it's very straightforward. It clearly has the support of the community, and it seems in the best interest of the city.
Okay. Okay, you have your approval. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next application is item number 1945 Strachan Avenue. This is an application to alter the redevelopment plan for a 39-story mixed-use building approved under a site-specific bylaw in 2015 by altering certain heights and setbacks and reducing the number and size of certain parking spaces. And we have on this application a covering letter from the agent, together with the shadow study and a parking study, and a copy of the site-specific zoning bylaw, and that is all we have.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
My name's Joshua Butcher. I'm a planner at Bousfields, and we are the planning consultants to Bentel Kennedy, which is the owner of the property. And as you stated, I prepared the detailed justification letter outlining the details of the proposal. I'm also joined here with Kristen Machina from BA Group, who prepared the parking assessment letter in support of the 2 parking-related variances.
Okay.
So I'm happy to
so
answer
just
questions.
generally, we've seen this in a number of, towers approved a couple of years ago, that they come back for, rather significant. Here it's like 102 spots less, about a third of the parking or little, that you're seeking to reduce for the exclusive use of residents. So does that mean that, are these spots already built and are they going to be run as commercial, or are they just not going to save money and not go down as deep as many parking spots?
So this is the 3rd and final block to commence redevelopment within the Ordinance Triangle, which is a mixed-use community that was developed in collaboration with the City of Toronto from a zoning perspective. No construction has started. When the site-specific bylaw was passed, it was really contemplated that this was going to be a condo project. It is now going to contain 424 purpose-built rental units, and the parking survey suggests that there is a lower parking utilization rate for purpose-built rental. And so BA Group's thorough analysis determined that the proposed parking supply is appropriate. It's gone through the site plan application review process. There's only minor stormwater comments that need to be addressed, and the development engineering report that we received in January confirms that Transportation Services is also satisfied with the proposed parking supply.
Okay, and Mr. Butcher, I believe it's also relevant to the fact we have no communication here from city staff. Planning is not objecting to this. Transportation Services is not objecting to this.
I'm convinced by the BA report. The question I had, and I think you may have just answered it, was 2 years ago you agreed to 280 parking spaces. That seemed to be a reasonable assessment of the parking needs on this property at that time. Between then and now, something's changed, and is there more than the fact that you substantially changed the ownership model? So you've gone from condos to rental. Is that the prime reason?
So when this land was kind of planned, it was done with the City of Toronto, Crate, TO, and Diamond Core, the previous property owner. It was intended that it was going to be condo. Then Bentel Kennedy purchased 11 and 25 to the south and also 45 Strachan. And they are a pension fund, and so instead of building condos, they're in the business of building long-term rental. And so it was determined through the site plan review process in consultation with BA Group that the parking rates were higher than necessary, and we just end up with excess parking that's
And what is
expensive.
long-term rental?
What is long-term rental?
Long-term rental.
Yeah, so
Just rental.
they will, I mean, some developers will look at constructing rental and then maybe looking at condominiumizing it and potentially selling it later. There's no desire to do that. It will always be a rental building.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just as a matter of procedure, I was not aware that Bentel Kennedy was the applicant, and I have a sibling who works for the company, so I'm just declaring an interest.
Yeah, so it'd be a complete waste to park.
Yeah.
Even condominium buildings are coming back and saying, we've sold 30%, we've sold 70%, we still have all these unsold parking spots.
An 11 and 25 ordinance, which is a much bigger building, it's also rental, and we were here 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, seeking a similar parking rate. And 30 ordinance has also done some adjustments as well, but those are the kind of the uptake that we're seeing in this part of the city for rental buildings.
What are those addresses?
So we're at 45 Strachan.
I know, 30 ordinance.
11 and 25 ordinance is the other Bentel Kennedy property, and then 30 ordinance is the other development block, but it is under Citizen Development Group, so a different owner.
Mr. Chairman, unless there are further questions.
Yeah, I have a brief question. So is the change in the parking requirement based only on the fact that it's now rental, or does your client have experience with the other buildings in that they're rental and there's a lower demand for parking?
Yeah, so BA Group's kind of extensive report looks at a whole slew of other rental apartment buildings in this part and other parts of the city, actually looking at those parking demands, and that there's this consistent trend downwards for downtown residential buildings where the parking demands are just getting lower because fewer and fewer people are choosing to own their own vehicle.
Or pay for parking.
Or can afford to pay for parking. So one of the two. They go hand in hand.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the application. I'm not in favor of just reducing parking without any reason. I think you provided us a very credible reason for the reduction. I'm pleased to see that you're adding to the rental housing stock, and on that basis, I'd like to move approval of the application.
Great.
I agree with my colleague, and I second the motion.
Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next application is item number 2052 Kerr Road. This is an application to alter existing two-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear one-story addition. And there are two variances under the new bylaw, one under the old bylaw, deficient one parking spot. And floor space index are rather modest, 0.73, whereas 0.69 is permitted. So that's only over by about less than 7 square meters. Good. And before us on this application, we have nothing whatsoever. No communication from neighbors or from city staff. Good morning, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. My name is Christian Chan. I'm the land use planner for the owners, Jessica Dubalar. I have, as a matter of housekeeping and to answer a communication on the file, I have an authorization from the owner that's not on the file. And I also have a letter from the adjoining neighbor at 50 Kerr Avenue in support of the application.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, I know that you're not Andy Trotter, and he's listed as agent, so often other people appear and they don't kind of tell us why they're not the person listed as agent, so this is actually, the right way to do things.
Yeah, so I was brought on to review the file just from a land use planning standpoint, and I've went to do a site visit, and as I know, committee members, it's difficult to physically assess the rear of a property, so I've provided a picture so you get a look at it. I understand that during the site visits, you see the front of the property,
Yeah.
and the subject of the application is in addition to the rear on the main ground floor.
And you've given, very importantly, a letter from the owner right next door, the attached 50 Kerr.
Yes, and so see, these are constrained sites, and invariably they would need variances. Planning hasn't taken a position. There's no front yard parking. There's no front yard permits available. However, it is in parking permit area 8D, and the owner has informed me that they, in fact, have on-street parking permit from Transportation Services.
There is on-site. We have no comment from Transportation Planning, and you're only 7 meters over on what's permitted here.
Yes, and in between the buildings, there's a 2.04 meter clearance, so there's no way to get a vehicle to the back, and also the rear yard is very constrained if we were to provide parking. All the homes except for the corner homes in this block have no parking on the properties. With regards to the variance for FSI, we're seeking a 6.52 meters or 70 square feet above what is permitted in the 0.69 for a rear extension.
It's pretty minor. Okay, let's see
I have
if we
two
have
questions. The owner at 54 Kerr, have you been in contact with them?
We haven't received any communications with them, and I'm not aware of any communications with the neighbor to the east.
And the properties on either side, they don't have parking either, so do you know if they park on the street?
Yes, they park on the street as well.
Okay, thank you.
And there is permitted, street parking permitted.
Yes.
Permitted parking. Okay, ready for motion?
Yes, Mr. I'd like to move approval of the application, Mr. Chairman. I think these are minor requested variances, and I think they're an asset to the community.
Thank you.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our last uncontested application, and we'll go back to the hold items, is item 21, 107 Wineva. This is an application to alter the existing two-story detached house by constructing a rear second-story addition to replace the existing rear second-story deck. And we have a roof eaves projection and a FSI of 0.74, whereas 0.6 is permitted. And on this application, we have Transportation Services is fine with the application. No, yeah, okay. Right-of-way management, and that they have an advisory comment. And we have support, no objection, from both 105 and 109, both adjacent neighbors. So that's a good thing. Good morning, sir. Can you give us your name and address? And
Good morning, Chair. John Rutherford, Design. I'm the agent for the project.
Okay. Let's see if committee members have any questions for you. It looks very straightforward. Ready for a motion?
I have no questions. I'm prepared to move that the application be approved.
I'd second the motion.
Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so now we have the following held items that we're going to now do in order. 5, 8. So item 5 is the next one we're going to hear. That's 66 Adair. Then we're going to do number 8, which is 66 Saulter. And then we're going to do item 15, which is 265 Glebemount. And then we'll be done the morning agenda.
6. Did we do 6?
6? Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, we did 6.
Okay, so we're going to flip back and to number 5. Oh, I got to get out my other book. Hold on. Bear with me, Mr. Jan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is an application to alter, it's a revised purpose, to alter the existing two-story detached house by adding a secondary suite and constructing a rear two-story addition with a rear ground floor deck. And we have on this application for us previous decisions of committee affecting the property and correspondence in opposition from 67 Adair, which is, I guess, right across the street. But Okay, good morning.
Yes, good morning. My name is Leo Mastandre. I'm the agent for the owners at 6.
Sorry, with the neighbor, there's a neighbor here, correct, with concerns? You want to come join us at the front of the room and sit at the table on my left? Yes, thank you.
Is there a copy of this for the neighbors as well?
Pardon?
Do you have a copy of this for the neighbors?
I can give.
We can share, sir.
We can share,
Yeah.
so you can, I'll give them one of mine.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And I assume you're the neighbors at 67 who's written in the letter? No. Or no, okay.
We are at 64, we share the drive.
Also, oh, you share those, you're the adjacent neighbor? Okay, thank you.
Yes, so today we're here for the rear two-story addition and interior alteration.
Okay.
My client came to me approximately a year ago to design a house for him and his family. He has 3 children, 2 of which have special needs. So our design was focused on accommodating that his family's needs. The handouts that I've passed out, the number 2 is the 500-meter radius of my research. Page number 3.
Which house is your client's on this first page?
On the photo page?
Yeah.
It's the house in the middle.
This one here.
With the white siding on the
Yeah.
second.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and the neighbors who are here with objections are at
They're to the,
left on the picture?
yeah, they're in the picture to the right.
Red brick building.
So when we did our analysis on the site statistics based on coverage and based on GFA, similar projects were all approved within the area, and I have all the decisions attached behind those. We did speak to the neighbors, and their main concerns were not so much in regards to the variances, but in regards to what's happening there now. My client inherited basically a house which he was renting it out, and he came to me so that we could design it so that he could actually move in the house. Currently, there's a number of people living in the house, which once we get the permit, everyone will be gone from the house, and my client will move into the above unit and having a rental unit for extra income to
Right,
make
the
it
rental,
more.
the rental units in the basement?
In the basement, yes. And it's not the full basement because he wanted a room for the children in the back. So the design was based on his needs and also getting additional income to afford a property like this. If you have any questions, I think.
I didn't completely understand the site plan. Can you go to the site plan?
The site plan?
Yeah, I need to know how this joint driveway works. My questions are all about the driveway.
Sure. Okay, so.
Do you use it for parking?
I have the site plan right here. So the orange, this is the front of the property. Right. And that's the right of way.
Yeah.
And they both park in the rear. So that's our one existing parking that we have currently.
So in fact, this line is the line between.
So the right of way,
Is that
correct.
between soft landscaping and paving?
Correct. Yes, that's part of the right of way.
Okay, so all of that's
So the right of way,
provides access to a garage space there and a space there.
the right of way goes like this on both sides. And the driveway is the right of way in between the two houses. There's approximately 8 feet between those two houses currently, and it is existing condition. And also too, as you can see, we are not going beyond our neighbors to the west. Our rear is currently right there. That's where our addition will be. So we'll be at least 2 or 3 feet still shorter than the house to the west. We spoke to the people to the house to the east. They didn't seem to have any concerns. Correct. How can you build on it? We're not building on the right-of-way. The right-of-way goes like this. It's in line with the house, and then it curves. What's this line? That's overhead wire, I believe.
I misunderstood the drawing. I thought that
We're not
Position
going
was
into
on
right,
the
we're not allowed to build in the right-of-ways.
No, that's why I asked the question.
Yes, so we're just following the existing house, we're following it straight back, and we're adding about approximately a 12-foot extension for a master bedroom and his 3 children. So if you look at the second floor plan, we have 3 bedrooms, plus the master,
And your house doesn't go back as far as the house on
the west,
64?
yes.
These are the people here from 64, yeah.
And we comply with the rear yard setback.
Yeah.
Because there's no way they can get a...
No, it's this one, 64. It's these people, we're going to hear their concerns.
Our proposal does comply with the building length, the rear yard setbacks, we don't have a height issue. I think our variances are minor in nature.
What you basically have is floor space index and lot coverage.
I agree with Donald. I think it's this one.
Is
Look here,
this is your house here?
No,
Your house here?
correct.
And that's the shared driveway here?
Correct.
How do you get a car down there? Or from the photograph, it doesn't,
So you're-
somebody's got a...
I didn't
Garbage
see
bin.
it. You're here.
Yes,
Okay, and this is the driveway we're talking about.
correct.
I guess you got to move the recycling bins, I guess. Okay. And I just read the letter from 67, and it seems to be just related to the fact that it's a rental property and there's all kinds of parties and garbage and it's unkempt. But as you stated at the outset, Mr. Mastrandrea, when they get the permit, there's just going to be one basement apartment. The remainder of the house will be owner occupied.
Correct, and that's a big
So her
part of the
concerns
problem.
I don't consider them really valid because they're related to use and the current situation.
What can we hear
But
from
we'll
these
hear from,
people?
if when you finish, we'll let you go on. Let's hear from the neighbors and you'll have a chance to respond. Okay, can you come to the podium, please? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Michael McNeil. It's my wife, Sarah McNeil. As mentioned earlier, we share a driveway that runs between our 2 houses, where we can then park in the back areas, as you saw in that thing. So I think that some
Will
of...
you be able to still do so once they build this 2-story addition at the rear?
I hope so. As long as they don't narrow it, then the answer is yes. It will make it trickier to drive further with a narrow...
It's pretty tricky, hasn't
Yeah.
it?
According to these plans, it's not narrower, but it does actually, it does go back further. So you've got walls a little...
Right.
On both sides, a little
On both
further
sides,
back.
right. Yes. And so as you just mentioned with the letter that I think you read, I think some of our concerns are very much along those same lines, except we are the people who actually share the property.
So they're use-related more than planning-related?
Yeah, it's that it seems to be a rooming house with many, many people with
I
turnover.
think, the agent is almost acknowledging that, and hopefully by getting this building permit, getting through committee and building this 2-story addition, and being permitted to have only one extra dwelling unit in the basement, hopefully this is good news for you in this situation. I guess there's no guarantees they could go rent it out or Airbnb it or do whatever.
Yes, all those have happened.
Mr. Andrea saying, and if they're putting money into improving the property and making it larger for their own personal use, one would hope that that situation will greatly improve, if not limit, because he's admitted it's being rented out, I guess, to multiple parties. We'll hear from him in rebuttal. I don't know if it's one family renting it or it's...
No, I think it's 9 separate individuals right now.
Separate individuals.
Right, and it's been probably 20 or so people over the last year and a half, and we've had multiple issues with police and City of Toronto and garbage, so.
Right, but that's...
So that is part of our concern. I think the other part of our concern has more to do with the process and the safety of it and the mess that goes along with it. So we have 4 children, two are twin babies, 5 months old. So obviously noise is a major factor that we're concerned about, especially through the summer months. Also through the summer months, as you can, I don't know if you can see the back area, but this is where our children play, and I'm quite concerned about.
So the first issue is, again, not before us, it's dealing with use, and from listening, it sounds like hopefully that situation is going to improve. With respect to construction and noise and garbage, or, you know, access and dirt and all of those wonderful things, those are not dealt with us. You have to deal with the building department and any concerns. Perhaps you can, you know, the contractor should meet with you and indicate what measures are going to be taken to protect your property and protect your family.
Right.
There's hours of work that are required, so you can sort of educate yourself through that process, but that's not something that we deal with either.
Okay.
I always, you know, we've had situations where someone comes and they say they have no objection to what their neighbor is planning to do, but they say there's 10 of the applications or 10 new builds and going on the street at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's just, you know, sort of part of the life of the big city.
I understand, yeah. So, yeah.
So you really don't have any planning concerns other than the fact that you want to be
able to access.
given access, that you can still access your
During
parking
the
spot.
construction as well. And
Yeah.
I don't know if there is a depth variance in that area, but maybe there should be, because we have had experience with our house, which we didn't build our house, we moved into it. But just in renovating our basement, we discovered it's actually a marsh originally there, like a pond. So I don't know if there will
Well,
be.
we don't have any indication. Looks like there's been a zoning review and the variances have been identified by city staff rather than the applicant himself. Of course, if there was any variances missing, they'd have to come back. But it doesn't appear that there's any length or depth variances. And just basically the floor space index and lot coverage. And lot coverage from the examples Mr. Master-Njay has produced, it appears to be, I don't know what your lot coverage is, but it appears to be sort of in line with what's the approvals have been granted in the area.
You mentioned that your children play in the back garden. In a circumstance like that, we might often discuss the provision of fencing between the two, which is not an option here because the fencing would not make it possible for you to access your parking space. So the children are exposed, will be able to go from property to property. The positive side of this is that the addition that's proposed is actually further away from your back garden. Your house goes back further, as you indicated. I don't see that there's anything about the proposal that would create a difficulty there. Your point about the depth and the marsh, that's valid, but there is no variance request for, it's just about the lot coverage. Do you have any concerns about parking? Do you have 1 or 2 parking spaces in your property?
We also have one parking.
One parking.
Right at the back. It's just the exact same that they have.
Yeah.
So parking is always a challenge in our neighborhood.
You probably have the same, you said you didn't build your addition, but they must have gotten the similar variance for only having one parking spot.
Yeah.
It's a weird area, because if you look in the picture, the lot to the west of us is just a parking strip that's for houses that are facing the opposite street. So when we bought, we actually thought that was our driveway, but it turns out ours is a shared one. Anyways, it is complicated.
Oh, this over here.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And we did look into
When I looked at the photo, I
getting.
thought you had 2
I know.
driveways. Why?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
that's why it's, even when we have guests, anyways. But we did look into getting the parking pad in the front, but I know that's not a option too, so.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay,
Thank you for.
We do have 2 letters to submit from another neighbor too. I don't know.
okay.
Just give them in.
It's a question for you.
No, through you, Mr. Chair, just as maybe just as an advisory comment, you might want to, while you're here at City Hall, go to the parking permits office and just tell them that your neighbor will be doing construction, because it looks like you probably won't be able to access your parking space during the construction, and find out what options you have in terms of getting an on-street parking permit during that time. It would be down on the main floor, a permit alley, west side of the building, all the way to the very end of the hall.
Okay, you want to submit those letters, well, it would be nice to have them at the, I don't know if there's a similar stuff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The first one is from 64, that's you.
That's us.
Okay, that's you, your letter, thank you. Sometimes it's better, and hopefully there won't be a next time, but get the letter to us so we can read it when we're reviewing the applications. And this one is in a sealed envelope. Let's bring a letter opener with us today, in addition to a magnifying glass to read plans. And this is a letter, looks like it's similar from 69 Adair. Yeah, and again, it looks like it deals with concerns for the residents, their landlord not having concern. Okay, do we have any questions? Mr. Mastrande, you want to come up and have a chance? You can give us your 2 cents in reply. But like I said, hopefully the concern seems to be with the current situation in the property as a interim rental property, subject to them getting this permit and getting the variances and going ahead and converting it back to a single family with a dwelling unit in the basement.
Right, which will improve its existing current conditions, which I do understand their concerns. Unfortunately, none of them are planning related, but we will definitely, my client will definitely move into the house. So that will help with any of these loud parties or garbage, noise, and all that other stuff that's been mentioned in the letters.
Okay. It would be helpful as well if your client and the neighbors could work together on parking, as the Secretary Treasurer indicated during construction. Both of you might be without the normal parking space, and you'll need alternate parking.
Correct. Currently, my client's letting them park in the right-of-way because no one has a car in our property.
Yeah, and also maybe have some discussion about the construction and how, given that they're have a young family with 4 children.
Yes, I will give them my card, and after the hearing, if they have any concerns, they can give me a call.
Okay, any further questions for either Mr. Mastrandrea or the neighbors, the McNeils?
I have no questions. Seems to me this is a relatively minor application, and I'm prepared to move to approve it.
Thank you, Mr. Granevstein.
Second the motion.
Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so that was number 5. So the next application is item number 8, 66 Saulter. Will the applicant come to the podium and neighbors come to the seats on my left? This is an application to alter the 2-story townhouse by constructing a 3-story rear addition with basement and basement walkout and a rear deck. And we have on this application, we have photographs provided by the applicant, comparable existing rear additions in the surrounding area, and a drawing of the north side elevation, and correspondence from the agent, Mr. Hudson. We have a TRCA memo from them and from transportation from planning, and concerns from 64 Saulter. And we have also from development engineering. Okay, yeah, we got some letter from Mrs. Pollock. Okay, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Will Hudson. I'm the architect and agent for the owner. The proposal before you is for the demolition of an existing, very poor quality 2-story addition that has no basement, has a crawl space. We'd like to retain the front Victorian portion of the house and knit a new 3-story rear addition with a basement into that. The intention architecturally was that the rear addition remained largely invisible from the street. And we also kind of worked specific to the context here, which was that the neighbor to the south, number 64, has an existing 2-story rear addition that's really quite long. So we position the addition to the rear. And as I say, sort of utilizing the point at which the peak on the existing Victorian house takes off to continue that for the roof line for our new 3-story addition. Generally, and it's provoked some variances. Some are technical, and some are, I would make the argument, really quite minor. The first two relate to exterior wall height. We're a little bit over on that. That's a difficult, we're not over on overall building height, but the main wall heights. That's a tricky part of the new bylaw to maintain, given that there's not a restriction on height. We're allowed to go up.
Right.
And add the
Mr.
3
Hudson,
stories.
you're aware of the staff condition that seeks to tie you to the plans with respect to the exterior main wall height?
Yep, totally fine. And
rear portion?
Yeah, and understand the thrust of
And
that.
I just, reviewed it. The letter from number 64 appears to be all construction-related concerns, not planning concerns.
Yeah, they're totally understandable, but yeah, they're not really related to any of the variances that have been listed. The floor level variance number 3 is obviously because we've got a 3rd floor and we're existing 2-story. The depth, again, I think acknowledging the fact that the neighbor 64 is substantially deeper anyway I would make the argument allows that variance to be minor and supportable. The 5th variance is the FSI, where we're 0.4 over, essentially 5.5 meters squared of additional floor space that we're asking for. There are precedents. There's one before you today for substantially more than that for all the townhouses on the opposite side of the street. They're at 1.2. And the last variance is kind of technical. We have no openings on our side, but the neighbor to the north side, number 68, does have openings, so that trips that variance. Have any questions?
Thank you for that presentation, Mr. Hudson. See, committee members have any questions, or we'll hear from the neighbor and you'll have a chance to respond. Find out who he represents. But I agree that the neighbor in 64 doesn't seem to, and her house goes back even further than yours does after the...
Yeah, and 60, a couple of houses over, is even longer existing condition.
Okay, thanks. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is David Stickney. I'm agent for Lucy Laplan, who is the owner of 68 Saulter Street. And the issues for my client relate to the size of the addition at the rear. It seems to, in some respects, well, in all respects, fly again in the face of the bylaw. The bylaw specifically tries to eliminate higher buildings behind shorter buildings, specifically to not impact at the rear. If you look at the property data map, all the buildings have a main body of the house and then a narrower portion at the back. So the specific...
So your concern is with the height?
It's with the height and the proximity of the height, as well as the length for the height. So they're not, the length is not an issue per se, other than the fact that there's a wall there now that is 1.03 meters away from the property line. That's required, I mean, a new wall is required to be 5.5 meters back, and they're 0.48. I mean, it's or 1.7 meters back. So when moving the wall closer to the property and going up to a height of 9.98, where the existing wall is in the neighborhood of 6.5 meters high, is that looking.
Your client's house is the one on the right. We don't see the whole property, but is that, it doesn't have a same pitched roof that the others do? It looks,
In the planned version, the existing addition is highlighted in yellow. So it's moving closer, and it's longer. And as I say, the length per se is not an issue, because the one to the south of them is in fact longer than what they're proposing. It's the proximity of a wall that is 9.98 meters high, right up to within 0.48 of the property line. So the bylaw specifically creates the distance between those side conditions of 5.5 request.
1.7.
And they're 1.7, and it even at 9.95 meters, which is the, I mean, they're at 9.98. It's shadowing completely. Now, she has a design and a permit ready to be issued for a sunroom on the back, which is 8 feet long on the back of her house. Yes. Which is pretty much put in the shade by this entire proposal. I would add that her house steps down at the back, so she exits right at grade, whereas the proposal has a ground floor that is up. And their existing ground floor is 8 inches higher than my client's ground floor. So everything that's north of that is at grade level for my client. So she finds it at extreme. She's not concerned as much about the length as the height, but that the length is the height right against her property.
Did you discuss this issue with Mr. Hudson today or previously?
Yes, we went outside.
So you weren't able to resolve anything? Mr. Hudson's client's not prepared to move the wall back a little bit?
I believe they started with the wall right on the property line, and they've moved it to that distance. But again, it's still the height of the wall, at being a 3-story behind a 2-story. My client suggested that they actually use the attic space of the existing front portion, because then any impact of the 3rd story would fall on my client's roof. It would not be affecting the windows or the sunroom or anything. And the height of the addition at the back would be much more in keeping with the height of what's to the south of them. In fact, they're much higher. So, and I mean, the existing condition, you know, has a sloped roof, and this is squaring up and higher than the existing peak. So if I show
planning department seems to, yeah, they're saying that, you know, they wanted the exterior main wall height limited to the proposed 3-story addition. So I guess they weren't in favor of them doing the 3rd floor over the existing 2-story portion of the
Correct.
house. That may create other impacts. What are we looking at here, sir? The rear.
This is the subject property here.
Right.
This is the property to the south, so it's longer, and they have a peak.
Is that attached?
Party wall point. My client's house is here.
So
you can
the
see
property,
that
that's one property with the different roof height, or is that 2 sides of a semi?
properties.
It's 2 sides of a semi that have different pitches.
64, this is 66.
Uh-huh.
And so you can see that the existing wall has an eave that's at a 6.5 meter height, and they're proposing to take that wall straight up to 9.98 meters and move it over half a meter towards the house to the north, where the windows are on the south side. So the impact of putting 3 stories behind 2 stories is enormous here.
Questions
I think we should
for the agent, for the neighbor?
hear from Mr. Hudson.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Hudson, you have a chance to respond to the issues that have been raised about the proximity, the height, and the fact that it's so close to the lot line of 1.7.
Well, I think speaking to specifically the item 6, that variance that's provoked by the side yard and the requirement, if mathematically, if you look at that, because the neighbor at 68 has an opening, the effect of that is punitive to my client, would say that, okay, anything that you do there must be 5.5 meters away from it. That would prohibit any kind of rear addition being done. So I don't actually understand how that part of the bylaw would really be useful in a situation like that. Again, it's the opening is not on my client's side. This is an existing opening on the other side. You would end up with if you could even do it, a slither of an addition on our side. I think it's worth saying too that my clients did approach early on the neighbor at 68. At that time we were proposing, I can show you, we had full width addition at ground and second floor, and in order to meet some of the neighbors' concerns, we actually pulled it back so that there isn't, beyond this technical bylaw variance, there isn't one for proximity to the lot line. We're beyond the 0.45 that you would need for an addition that has no openings. So there have been efforts by my clients to meet the concerns of the client on the north side. I think it's worth saying that both of these neighbors, unfortunately, are in active dispute about another issue on the property at 68, which colored the course of the conversations that were happening between both of them. It's unfortunate.
Mr. Hudson, do you know what the windows at 68 adjacent to your client's property, what rooms are those windows on? How many are there? How large are they?
I believe there's 2. I'm sorry, I don't have the pictures with me. Perhaps the representative for them would know, but I believe it's I think it's in the kitchen, and there's one on the second floor. I think there's 2 windows on that side.
Are they large windows, small windows?
They're relatively small. They're not glamorous big picture windows. They're, yeah.
Just looking, we know we had 4 applications across the street.
Yep.
Earlier this morning.
So yeah, and that's
because these ones have openings, that one didn't. So they.
Yeah, and I think that as far as the personality of third floor, it's worth looking at what's happening across the street and what was presented earlier on for the block almost directly opposite where my client is, which is this is what you're looking at, which is the new kind of townhouse buildings. They step back. There's a complete change on the street where my clients want to keep the Victorian facade, but on the opposite side of the street, densification is happening, and third floor is absolutely happening, and it's stepped back from the street very much in the way that the applicants earlier on for, I think it's 47 to 51 are doing. So although I acknowledge that the neighbor at 68 has a very cute, attractive little Victorian house next to ours, I think that realistically this is what's happening on Saulter Street. No, we did not. The heights have really resulted from the continuation of the floor-to-ceiling heights that exist in the existing part of the Victorian house. So following them through. So what we did at the rear was to try and add some architectural expression to that rear facade so that it feels as if it's more in keeping with a two-story. So an effort was made to try to add some architectural feature to that back elevation. But the side wall height, main wall height, it's very, very difficult to satisfy that portion of the new bylaw, and we are over it, but again, I would make the argument that not by a lot.
Planning has no concerns. They said they would prepare a report considering the main wall height being tied to plans, which they've done.
Yeah, we had pretty extensive conversations with planning just to get us here today, and they didn't have any concerns with it.
Mr. Hudson, would it be fair to say that if variance number 6 was not approved, you really couldn't extend the building at all? I've been looking at your floor plans there. It's a narrow house design.
Yep.
It's a kitchen, and there's very little wasted space in it. But if you had to change the setback from 1.7 to 5.5, basically it would obliterate the addition, right? You could.
It's not doable. Yeah, you may get a corridor along the south side adjacent to 64, but in this instance, that part of the bylaw would
prevent you from expanding backwards.
Yeah, at all.
Mr. Hudson, following up on that, I don't understand this bylaw. When you talk about a townhouse and you're talking about narrow lots in the city, how could you possibly have a 5.5 meter setback?
Well, I think it acknowledges that even though this is technically a townhouse, those take different forms. So where you have this very Toronto kind of main part of the house and then it has a waist and moves out, I think what the bylaw is attempting to do is say where that happens, we would like to see some kind of breathing space for that portion of the house. But in an instance like this, I would humbly submit that it doesn't make any sense. So you certainly wouldn't even be allowed to do the existing two-story addition that's there. That would, by this bylaw, that would be existing non-conforming. And the weird thing, too, with, kind of from a pragmatic building point of view, I think there's actually, in real life, a space between 66 and 68. They're co-joined as far as the bylaws concerned, but because I think there's a flashing that joins them, but I think they're actually separate and succinct structures. The two that are attached are 64 with that peaked roof that you've seen, and 66. And then this house, again, I think there's a sort of 8-inch gap that runs between them above grade.
What constitutes a townhouse as opposed to, so is there a bylaw? I'm sure there's a bylaw. What's the minimum required distance between the main walls of a regular house and another dwelling with openings? As opposed to the setback for a townhouse?
I don't know, and I'm not expert in that part of the bylaw, but I know that if you have no openings, you generally are required to have a 0.45 setback. And we have more than that, but if you have openings, then it can vary a lot. I mean, if you're in Leaside, it could be 1.2, 0.9.
But it sounds like there's a difference between a townhouse and some other kind of house. What's the definition of a townhouse? How's this a townhouse as opposed to not a townhouse?
I don't know. The zoning examiner reviewed it that way, and I presume that their wisdom prevails here. That's how they looked at it.
Chair, I don't think that it's a townhouse with the house at 68. It's a townhouse with the houses on the others, 3 of them that are the same. So it's not with the 68. There's 3 houses attached together. That's a townhouse. If there's 2, it's semi-detached. Yes. So it's the last of 3 houses that are all attached.
Is it like a link, sort of linked, like link homes? It's 3 together?
Right.
So I guess there's, as we discussed, there's no way that you could come close to applying with 5.5 where there's openings between the main walls. I guess you have jogged it in a bit. And what's the depth of the, so in other words, could you bring it in at all and still have a usable area? I see it's for a dining room, kitchen, the main floor, master bedroom, and ensuite and walk-in closet on the upper floor.
It's pretty slender. It's a 15-foot wide lot.
Right.
I mean, you really don't have a lot of elbow room.
So
And
you
we've,
have jogged it in a bit.
yeah,
But to do any more, you'd, again, not be able to build anything that's usable.
yeah.
And the other question is, if you jogged it in a bit, would it really assist the
Exactly,
neighbor?
yeah. I think by jogging it in, it would have a bigger impact on the applicant than on the neighbor, because the neighbor is not going to have, if you move it in a small amount, they're still going to be faced with the existing situation, albeit slightly closer to them.
So your whole lot is less than 5.5 meters?
It's, yeah, the lot is 4.67, but the way I read that variance, I think it's saying 5.5 between each other, so that you would take the face of the neighbor and then come 5.5, but it's going to be, well, you can see how far that would come into my lot, as it were, or my client's lot.
So the 5.5 would be really 2.75 on each of the 2 lots.
Right.
Okay, any further questions, or are we ready for a motion?
So just one more point. How far is the 68 back from the lot line?
From the front lot line?
From the lot line that where these windows are, that the neighbor is complaining about.
Yeah, I don't have that dimension on the drawings.
It is on here. It's on this drawing. I can't read it.
It's really close.
Very small. It's A01. You've got it there, but I can't read it. It's very small.
Yep.
You want to know how far? Well, 64 is the one that goes way
1.68, I
back,
think,
right?
is the dimension from the survey.
Thank you.
I can read it. Where is it? Which one is it?
If you go onto the last drawing, the survey drawing, they've dimensioned it.
What is jog,
Which drawing is it?
Oh, A0.1, I think it's there.
Yeah, so that one goes, we have,
Sorry, yes, it is there, you're right, 1.68.
Yeah.
1.68?
Yeah,
So in total, the distance between them is 1.7 and 1.68, so it's 2.14 approximately distance.
yeah. Well, you would have to subtract 1.68 from 5.5, and that's the point at which you'd be allowed to do the rear addition, so from that lot line, or from that northern lot line.
you're shorter than the neighbor on 64 and longer than the neighbor at 68. You also have a deck off of there, but, okay, we ready for a motion? When 01 basically shows you the.
Mr. Chairman, there's no easy answer to this application, but I do believe that the variance request is reasonable, notwithstanding the fact that there is some negative result on the adjacent neighbor. I don't see an alternative other than basically preventing the applicant from expanding his property at all, which I think is totally unreasonable. So on that basis, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the application subject to the planning conditions which limit the two of the variances to here, to the third story.
Okay. Mr. Granstein?
Is there a condition?
Yeah, conservation, I think, was
No
just
objection.
a no objection, yeah.
I agree with Mr. Patel that this is, the requirement is impossible. The requirement of having 5.5 meter setback from dwelling next door is impossible to achieve in this lot, and the applicant has done what he could to accommodate, or what she could, he and she could to accommodate the neighbor. Unfortunately, the neighbor is going to be inconvenienced. But the applicant, his property would be sterilized if we refuse this application, so I'm going to second the motion.
Okay, and I would agree as well. I think you have to look at the fact that you're slightly over 5.5 meters on floor space index. There's nowhere else to build this. The height is relatively reasonable. The depth is reasonable as compared to 64. You're way further back than 64. And so it's unanimous. You have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think we have one more application to do from the morning, and that is item number 15, 265 Glebemount. Would the applicant come to the podium, neighbors on to the, you're there, you know where to go. Okay, this is an application. We have a revised purpose to alter the existing one-story detached dwelling into a two-story detached dwelling with an integral garage below grade by constructing a second-floor addition, a rear two-story addition with rear second-story balcony, a rear deck, and a basement walkout, and a new front porch and an integral garage below grade. And we have before us on this application nothing whatsoever, no communication from area residents or from city staff. We do have neighbors here in opposition. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. My name is David Tortos. I'm here to represent the owners of the house. I'm the general contractor.
Okay, so I see the agent is Andrew Arsenault.
Yes, he is.
So he did the application and you're the contractor?
Yes, I am.
Okay, again, your name?
David Tortos.
How do you spell your last name?
Tortos.
Okay. Okay, welcome, Mr. Tartos. Okay, could you walk us through your application? I see there were some revisions already made because they're highlighted in terms of the change purpose of the application. There is a change to the height of the south side exterior main wall. Is indicated that is a change, and also all the height variances appear to have been jiggled. I don't know if they were higher at one originally. You're allowed 8.5, you're at 9.36. Under the old bylaw, you're allowed you're at 9.4, I guess, different measurement on the height under the new bylaw. So can you just walk us through the history of how we're here and what the status, including any discussions with neighbors?
Yes, okay, to start with, well, I'm just a general contractor, as I said, because the engineer, he has way better experience than me in accordance to the whole building and even the bylaws. Right. So when we meet up with the neighbors, we did a direct call on speaker to him so he can explain it better what was going on, their main concern.
Oh, you mean when you were out in the hall, you had a discussion and you brought the engineer into the discussion out in the room before the meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So
because I assume you didn't expect there were going to be people here. We don't have any communication. So they sent the contractor rather than the planning consultant or the engineer.
Mr. Tortos, could you just speak up a little bit?
Yes, sir. So as I said, we meet up with the owners and we call directly the architect so he can explain better since he has better knowledge of the building and the zoning in the area. But their main concern is the height of the building.
Right.
He already tried to explain to them more or less what's going on with the height, and we already been working with the examiner. Previously to this, we had already reduced the building according to his recommendations. He was happy with the changes that we did, but we also had to spawn it against you guys and the neighbors. We had reduced it. One of the concerns that he had, or the insecureness, is the different slope on the front of the property that is higher on the left side to the right side. So we have to take the average. Actually, on the left side, which is the neighbors on 267, it's 9 meters because, as he shows over here, 9 point.
What is have to see where these people reside. I assume they're possibly the adjacent neighbors, but I do see, as I say, it looks like you've already, or your client, or their planner has already brought it down from, because it's highlighted.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
the wall heights that are before us now have been reduced from something previously.
Yes, and
So you know what? Maybe it's best we'll hear from the neighbors. I hope maybe they have a spokesperson. We'll see who's here, and then you'll have a chance to respond.
I have one
Perhaps they
question.
can let us know what happened in the meeting outside as well.
I have one question before you go.
Yep.
The issue, you're quite right, is height, and that's the one that I have the most concern about as well. There are one-story buildings on either side.
yes, actually, there's 2 precedents already on that same street on 272 Glebemount. We have an allowance already of 9.2 meters.
How far away is that? How many properties?
Well, we are on 265, and this is on 272 on the same street, so a few
The other
houses.
side of the street.
Yes, and also we have on 271 precedent of an allowance of 9.1 meter, which is fairly close to what we're asking for.
Is that for the main wall height or the?
Well, these houses, they have a straight average.
The majority of the houses on your side of the street on Glebemount are one-story, but there is one that's higher.
Yes,
Is
it's
that
fairly
correct?
close. Well, we're trying to.
And there's one across the road that's higher.
Yes, sir.
But the majority, it's a one-story neighborhood.
Yes, they are all houses. The whole neighborhood is starting to change.
Starting to change with property
But
values or whatever.
The
so-
official plan does indicate, there's been official plan amendment 230, which indicates that any changes have to be gradual and in sympathy with the existing character of the neighborhood. I just want to establish, my understanding is that the character of this neighborhood is of bungalows, one-story bungalows, and this building is considerably higher than that.
Yes, well, as I said, it's a big difference from a bungalow to a 2-story building, which is the
Yeah,
mostly.
in terms of gradual, like, you can't go 1 to 3 maybe is not gradual, 1 to 2, you can't go to 1 to 1.5. You did mention the one on the odd side of the street, 271.
Yeah, we have 272
You have a
according to
copy
what
of-
he.
That went to Committee of Adjustment and they got approval at 9.1, you're saying?
Yes, sir.
And you have a copy of that decision?
No, actually, I don't, because the
That's quite
architect, he
close
just
by.
informed me until now that we had run into this.
No, the 271 would be 3 properties over on
Four.
the same side.
Four on the other side.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we have 271 and 272.
same
Yeah,
side.
I know, it's right there. It's right
Okay, and
this
it's the corner house? Or?
One across the street and one on the same side of the street.
Okay, so why don't we hear from the neighbors, and their issue's gonna be height, and you'll have a chance to respond, Mr. Tordos.
So it is with respect to the height?
Yep. Okay, give us your name and,
We sent this to a gal named
Thank you.
Teresa, but it got bounced back, so.
Oh, okay.
we'll see that in time to forward it on. So my name is Bo Standish. I am the homeowner at 267 Glebemount. My wife Winnie is here from our house, and the neighbors on our opposite side, Denise, and her nephew Robin, who's representing Huey, the older gentleman at the residence. So we represent
sorry,
both.
where is, Huey is the owner at the other side at 269? Or 263?
263.
Here, but we have both adjacent neighbors here before us.
Represented, yes.
Correct.
You're representing the neighbor at 263, and Mr. Standish, you are the owner of 267.
Correct. So
Why don't you give it, we didn't get this letter before, so.
Yeah, so it's a high level. It comes to height. I have some pictures here to show you that. First of all, we don't want to stand in front of progress, but we have knowledge of those other houses on our street. Again, this will be the tallest one, speaking with those other homeowners. So I apologize for the contrast here. This is from the backyard of our house. This is our house. This is the
Your house is a bungalow?
Yes.
Okay, and your house is a bungalow? Okay.
Yeah, I'll go to a different picture first to show the street. So So this is our side of the street. Towards the left here is north. Towards the house south here is south. So I took a picture of facing south and then facing north. You can see they are all one-story individuals. This is the house that was mentioned to 271, I believe.
Right.
And speaking with that homeowner, the height of that was 8.46 meters, which even there, if you were to look at the street, it's a massive, massive change in.
Okay, so that's 8 point, so 271 was at 8.46?
According to the homeowner who I spoke to. Looking at the.
Well, actually, 8.5 is the allowance, so they were under, they wouldn't even have needed a variance for that. They stayed under.
Looking from the backyard here, similar concepts to the previous discussion right before we came up. This house with the extended length going up to 17.6 meters, this fence is about just under 2 meters. We'll have more than almost 7.5 meter wall that will essentially block almost a very large percentage of our backyard. This fence here, again, I'm not an architect, but measuring as much as I could off of the drawings that were provided, the house would extend essentially to where my umbrella goes back. So again, imagine in your own backyard going from this beautiful view of the sky and the trees, and now there's going to be a 9.18 meter, which goes beyond the height of this image, if my scale measurements were accurate. In addition, facing this way, this is facing south. We have a large picture window here. It's approximately 4.5 feet by width, almost 3 feet by height. Our kitchen window is right beside it. This will all be blocked now in a veil of shadow for really the entire year, regardless of whether it's the high noon of summer or high noon of winter time. So it comes down to the height. Again, we just, unfortunately, David seems like a good guy. The first time we met anyone in regards to this entire build was the 5 minutes before we came up here. He did provide us with a discussion with Andrew. Andrew just essentially regurgitated the heights that were provided in the drawings. And all we're looking for here is if that house that is at 271, which is also already a massive two-story house, and according to the homeowner at 8.46, I don't know why we need to go another 3/4 of a meter or up to a meter. And in addition, they're also asking for that allowance to, I believe, go from a 0.9 millimeter sidewall to a 0.42 millimeters. So now it's really butted up right against our property on the south side. So I'll pause there for any questions.
Just reading your first point here, like the side yard setback, and I know it's mainly here about height. Why does it need to be decreased from 0.9 to 0.42? I assume
General
building
questions.
in line, I assume that's already where it is.
Okay.
See, we don't show the existing, we show what's required under the bylaw. These houses were built prior to the bylaw. So maybe we'll hear from Mr. Tartos that I don't believe they're making it any closer than it currently is.
Okay, that's good to know.
Sometimes that variance, it's pre-existing, obviously it's going to be continued up to the second floor, but it's not being brought any closer than it is. Because you say, why does it need to be decreased? So I think it's going to be maintained where it is. But I agree, the height's an issue. We see that the entire, we see that Ms. Nipfeld said, the predominant built form character of the neighborhood is currently bungalows. However, we're in 2019.
Correct.
And with the rising cost of real estate, is it not likely that there's going to be some movement as in other areas to build more house on these lots as a question of...
And we completely agree with that. I guess really the only question is, why does it need to be that much higher again, where you've been in our neighbor's house? They have 10-foot ceilings and everything.
House at 171, 271 is in fact their height. We don't have a copy of their Committee of Adjustment decision, assuming they went to committee. We really don't know. We don't have that. But I don't know where you got that information that it was 8.49?
6.
8.56, or even less.
My other question is...
You have something that shows that?
I don't, unfortunately.
That shows that they can indeed do a second story and still fit in within the bylaw, as opposed to extending it by, over 2 meters more than what's permitted. Not the height of them. You also talk about questions about the sidewall versus the main wall height.
Sure.
So we're looking at there are 2 meters, 1 meter over from 8.5 to 9.4, right? So that's the question.
My other question has to do with the garage, which is adding to the height. There's an integral garage, which effectively means that this house is 2.5 to 3 stories high. It's not
Correct.
1 story because of the integral garage.
If you look at the, correct.
All of the other parking accommodations in your immediate neighbor, or your immediate neighborhood, the people park on driveways or in garages at the back, or do they, where is the parking?
So it's primarily street parking or pad parking. This will be the first house on the street with a garage inside of the core structure of the building.
Including the one that's high?
Including the one in the high. We share a laneway in the back, that's where we park.
Okay, thank you.
Like I said, it would be very useful to know at 271 if they can actually build a second story and still comply and not go over the bylaw by 2 meters or 1 meter.
I'm not
It'd be
sure.
nice to see that, but
Yeah.
maybe we'll ask in rebuttal. He's a contractor, he may know.
Correct. Any other, I think they've covered everything.
Okay.
Again, we don't want to stop it. It's grossly larger than anything on the street and grossly larger than the existing massive house on the street.
I think a good example would be what they did at 271, as opposed to saying, no, you can't have a second story, you can't make your house larger, as doing it with less impact on the immediate neighbors.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Mr. Tortos, you're going to have to ask your client why they sent the contractor here and not the planner, but do you know, like my question was, before you get into your rebuttal that you're entitled to, we saw the house at 271, it's the second story. I don't know if they're looking for 10-foot internal ceiling heights or they're more modest at 8 and 9 feet or something. Can you build a second story onto this home and still comply with the 8.5 meter height?
Well, if you see our
go slightly over.
Our drawing, we're very tight on the space, but because what we did, since it's a very small lot,
Right.
so we're
What are your
building above
what are
the
your
garage.
internal ceiling heights?
I'm sorry?
What are the internal ceiling heights?
Well, as I said, when we go over the garage, we have 8-foot ceiling, and on top of that, again, 8-foot ceiling. So we're very restricted to the height. Even on the percentage of the roof, we're on 3% slope, which if we try to jig it just a little bit more than that, we're right at the allowance, it will be a flat roof, which it will give us more problems with some other details of the zoning bylaws. So we're trying to comply, we're trying to tidy up the house as much as we can, trying to make it fit into that envelope of being a decent house instead of being like completely oversized.
Okay, so thanks for answering my question. Now you can proceed with which maybe is part of what you're going to discuss. So the main concern is obviously the height and the impact on the neighbors and the fact that it's a neighborhood in transition, but so far the majority of the homes on the street are bungalows.
Yes, well, as I said, as you guys know it, most of the bungalows that
10
were
years
built.
from now, they may be mostly 2 stories, but right now they're mainly bungalows.
Probably they were 40, 50, 60 years ago. We're getting into a more modern age. All of the houses, they have these characters around the city nowadays. So we're trying to build as much as we can on that little lot, trying to do as best as we can with the space that we have.
Mr. Tortos, if you don't build a house with an integral garage, would your client have parking?
Well, the problem is they have a kid with special needs. So for them, it's very important to have that garage to bring in the car, especially for winter, for their mobilization, right? It's only as a single family that they're going to live into the house. Their kid is in his 20s. He has a special needs, so it's very important for them to have that garage.
He's in a wheelchair?
No, he's not. He has mobility, but restricted mobility.
We've had this problem before where the city bylaws are not designed to accommodate people with special needs, and I think they should. So you're saying that you need this integral garage to accommodate your client's child?
Yes, sir, as much as possible.
Right, but I'm saying the actual fact of having low-grade garage, I thought most parts of the city is now not permitted because of flooding, and I'm surprised that doesn't show up as a variance. There's a ZZC.
May I ask a question, actually?
I was just saying that I thought that maybe there's the integral garage below grade in some areas of the city shows up as a variance, that you're not permitted to do that, but I don't see that here.
I just had a question here, Chairman, just 2 quick ones. Just in that concept, I think right now, if you look at the front of the houses, we have, all of our houses are raised by about 1 meter of soil. So I think their idea is they're actually going to cut down that meter, which going to that garage, I don't know if that's a good idea. But the second question is, I'm not an expert in anything, but here the idea that if both floors are 8-foot ceilings and it's a 2-story building, how is the overall height 9.18 meters? The math doesn't work.
Because we have the slope of the roof.
Agreed. So if we go to the opposite side, 7 meters, 8 feet is about 2.5 meters, so that's 5 meters. Where's the other 2 meters?
Well,
Are they,
we have the garage.
can you confirm they're 10-foot
We
ceilings?
shouldn't be having a discussion, so everything's supposed to be directed through.
Can we just have confirmation that it's not a 10 or 11-foot ceiling?
This is the rebuttal and the...
Yeah, that's right. We're not really supposed to be engaging. You were sort of adding some information.
Sorry, I saw the microphone button, got excited.
I was giving some latitude on that because you were adding information, and Mr. Tortoise admits that he's the guy that's going to be building the house, not the guy that designed it. So let's finish your rebuttal, and then we'll take it into committee, and if committee members have questions for either you or Mr. Tortoise, and otherwise you've had your say, so thank you.
Well, as I said before...
So it's a good question. Can you answer why you can't build 2 stories and still stay within the 8.5 height limit or slightly above as opposed to a meter above?
Well, as I said, because of a few things, the design of the house, and second, that they really need this garage. So we have the garage underneath. We have the first floor, which is going to be the living room, since it's such a small lot, and the bedrooms up on top. So if you see on the right-hand side of the house, looking from the front wheel, which will be to the neighbors on the 263, the house is just accommodating to the minimum standards in heights that we're allowed instead of contradicting with some other zoning bylaws.
Mr. Tortoise, your roof slants, and on one side it's quite a bit lower than the other, and that's over the garage. But on the other side, there's an extra window. Is it possible to just level off the roof?
I'm sorry, I don't quite follow.
You know what I'm saying?
You mean to make it, to change the slope of the roof?
Yeah.
Well, as I tried to explain before, we are to the minimum allowance on 3% on the roof slant. If we go a little bit lower than that, then it will be classified as a flat roof.
Be classified as what?
Flat roof.
Flat roof, and then you have to go up, then you have less
Well,
height?
we have more variances, different variances, right? We try to fix one, and it will give us some different ones.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Committee members, any follow-up questions, any discussion, or are we ready for a motion?
Do you have any more questions, Don? Do you have any more questions? Pardon? Do you have any more questions?
I don't have any more questions.
Mr. Chairman, if there are no more questions, I'd like to bring forward a motion. First of all, Mr. Tortoise, you came sort of apologizing that you're the contractor and you're going to present the case. I'd like to compliment you on your presentation. You gave us a lot of information that we didn't have before that helps understand the context. I also have to say that my sympathies are with the appellants in this particular case. I am not of the belief that all of the 2-story bungalow neighborhoods in the city are going to automatically vanish, and we're going to end up with 2-story or 3-story boxes in their place. There are other ways of intensifying development other than replacing a bungalow with a 2-story box. I appreciate that your client tried to mimic the sloped roof character of the neighborhood, which I think is an important and an improvement over a flat roof building in this case. However, I don't believe that the proposal that we have before us is in fact consistent with the dominant character of the community, and on that basis, I'm going to recommend that the application be refused.
Second for the motion?
We've run into this problem before where the city does not, where there are certain requirements that people have for accommodating people who have health challenges. And we're told that, and I assume that this design is, and the height is in part caused by the need to have an integral garage, which Mr. Toto says is related to his client's child's special needs. And I think despite the fact the city doesn't have these bylaws to accommodate special needs children, that, special needs people, that we should, when we can, if we can, as a committee, do what we can to accommodate these people. And we have to look after our most disadvantaged citizens as well as our most advantaged citizens. Unfortunately, this is in a neighborhood with single-story dwellings, and this height is 2+ meters more than is allowed. So it would be a big change to the neighborhood. And I defer to Mr. Nepfeld, who is an architect, which I'm not, and accept his opinion that there's other ways to accommodate special needs children without going more than 2 meters higher than the bylaw, and I therefore support Mr. Nepfeld's reluctantly, but support his motion.
My position would be that I agree with my colleagues. I think that although, you know, we plan not for people, we plan for as people come and go, there may be other ways to accommodate, but the fact that it's mainly a bungalow community, and you're looking to go not only to the height limit with the second story, which I think is perfectly fine if you could stay within the height limit, but obviously you're going in some cases with the north side exterior wall being 2 meters over, almost 2 meters over, a little over 2 meters over, and the other wall being 1 meter over. I think it is too drastic a change. If you could fit the second story, I would have no problem if you could have fit at or very close to the 8.5 requirement, or the main other one of 7. So I would agree with my colleagues. I think this application should be refused because it's not minor because of the additional height. Second story that fit in more or less, not a problem, but the fact that it's well over on the height, I think makes it unworthy of support. So the application has been unanimously refused. Neighbors, please make sure you, in this case, an instance, fill out the white decision request card. In the event of an appeal, you'll want to be notified, and make sure you put your email address because that's how TLAB handles that. And thank you, everyone, for very good presentations. You did a great job, Mr. You can tell your client you did a very good job. Thank you. Okay, so we stand adjourned for the morning. We will return at 1:30 p.m. to do the afternoon session.